Live streaming is on.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. A very refreshing morning to all of you. I am Alka Rai, working as an emergency nurse in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. I welcome you all for this wonderful enlightening session today. First of all, I would like to introduce you or make you all aware that why we all are here today together on our screens. Uh, we celebrate International Women's Day on 8th of March. So our team of IAPH has taken this initiative to introduce us with the empowered women of our profession. I know every woman uh, its own way of empowerment, but we have some special ones. So without wasting much time, I would like to introduce you all with the very renowned personality, Dr. Kaveri Mayra. I welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Kaveri Mayra is a midwifery nursing and global health researcher from India with a PhD in global health from the University of Southampton, UK. Dr. Mayra was recognized as one of the 100 outstanding global midwife and nurse leaders by women in global health, WHO, ICN, ICM Nursing Now, to mark the year of Nurse and Midwife 2020. Dr. Myra has extensive research experience on nursing and midwifery workforce policies, regulation, and practice. And if I will tell you about Dr. Myra, there is a long list of her achievements, but we have Dr. Myra with us today, so we would like to hear it from you, ma'am. So, first of all, to start with your career, challenges, and support system to reach one among those 100 midwives recognized by ICN and WHO. So, over to you, Dr. Myra.
Thank you so much, Alka. And I'm very glad you asked me about challenges first. Um, well, challenges and support system. Support system have been many, I guess, over the years from the moment I entered into the pre-service education without much aspiration or big dreams to kind of, I mean, at that point, it was just like have a career and, do something that will get you employed, like have something that has sure short employment. And it wasn't really ever a thoughtful career choice that, I did it to serve people and humanity. There was no such ambition. I was 17 when I joined my pre-service nursing, and it was just fun to finally like just be on my own and not having to check with your parents about all the decisions you make and get that first sense of freedom and liberty, I guess. But um, as all of us who are among the audience would know, that nursing is actually a very, very challenging profession, and it starts being challenging from the level of when you start your in-service education. It's no easy feat to kind of have those 4 years, 3 years, 3.5 years, and that too when I did it, it was compulsory residential. Um, and I remember I used to relate most with my father, who had served in the military, because I felt it's as grueling a process, and I thought like no one else would understand what I'm going through. Like this is a professional degree, and the disciplinary nature of it kind of, yeah, I mean, so yeah, so from day one it has been challenging, but then I have always found a lot of people, even within the professors, even within the students, my friends, there always have been people who would kind of understand my weird and quirky side and would kind of appreciate and feed into it. Um, but having said that, I think it was during the course which I thoroughly enjoyed, but also was always very overwhelmed with. I realized some of those challenges that the profession kind of faces. And I think more than the profession, it kind of never was sitting very well with me that some of the atrocities as students we were experiencing, which even while experiencing, we could see the practicing nurses are experiencing as well. And I could clearly see that there's a sense of like voicelessness or powerlessness that's just embedded across. It just doesn't matter. It's just a level that's there. There are things we want to say, there are things we want to change, and we are not able to.
Can't do with that anything.
Right? So I think that has been the inspiring point that has always fueled the journey, and I never kind of had a pathway. I still don't. So if you have a 5 year or 10 year plan in your questionnaire, please chuck it off. um, I have just always just chased a, I don't know, problem, and looked for opportunity that kind of feels most aligned to the goals, and something that I realized many years ago when I was getting educated. And when you do that, I think, while you don't have an idea of a set pattern in your journey, but I've always found similar, weirdly wired people along the way, be it in India, and different states in India, at different levels in India, and also in different other countries, through conferences, through my journey, through workshops, through all kinds of things. And you always kind of attract those kind of people who hold you up when everybody says that. I mean, there are, of course, attempts to pull you down and not believe in what you're trying to do or what you're trying to say. But yeah, there are people who have helped along the journey, had faith, had belief. But I don't think I can pinpoint what exactly got me to that list. I don't even know who nominated me for that list, for that matter. And I, it's, I'm really grateful to be on that list. But having said that, I think from the moment, I think it's been 2 years now that I've been on that list, but I've always maintained that there is no one way of understanding or measuring, our what we are up to, what we are doing. There's no way of comparing what I have done in my career and what you are doing in your career. It's also unfair to kind of compare. We are all on our journeys, we all have our struggles, and we all kind of try to face whatever we face, and we all have our limited resources, our limited support systems. So there, it's a little tricky to kind of feel as proud as I probably should be about being on that list. But it just, I feel like I know so many people in so many countries who should like have topped the list and beat me up to it. But I mean, it's a beginning, I guess. It's one way of recognition. So I do acknowledge it. I do appreciate it. But what got me there, I have no idea. That too, I am there as a young leader. I don't feel that young. I don't think I'm that young. You've probably got my age wrong, but yeah, I guess just like I'm passionate about what I do. That has always been something very very dear to me, and something that I have been very, very proud of. That no matter where I'm working, no matter what my education level, no matter what amount of money I'm earning, I have always been very, very passionate about whatever I have chosen to do. And I guess, I guess that kind of people see and is attractive. I don't know. So be passionate about something, I guess.
And that is the best part. You said that being passionate is very much important, and which is very, very less in our nurses, because many of us, I feel that maximum of us join nursing by chance and not by choice.
Yeah.
So they just do it, and they become like they are doing their daily course and they are going work, and they are not very much passionate. They don't know where they are leading to. And after completing their BSc and then even after MSc, they become and they trapped in the system and they don't know where they have to go. And other than that, some master of nurses, like they want to pursue higher studies, they want to go for doctorate and postdoctorate. But means in fact I am also one of them. I want to go for PhD, but we all are like struggling that how we should get into it, from where we should search, or which college we should opt, or university we should opt, not only in India, in abroad also, if somebody is staying here and want to pursue PhD from abroad. So can you tell us that how should we search for PhD and postdoctorate, and which one is beneficial, like doing it from India or from abroad?
Hmm. Um, I do have an answer to this actually for a change. So basically, I haven't followed a traditional way of doing a PhD. I very honestly, when I joined my nursing degree, I just wanted to finish my degree. preferably not get a state job, because I always thought there are a lot of, you know,
Boundaries,
yeah,
limitations.
exactly. And I, from what I had seen, because I did my education from government college, and I saw the kind of restrictions and the kind of red tapeism that exists there. And I, like, from the beginning itself, and we having done it under a state government college, we are sure shot, up for a state government job. At some point, you will get an offer. But I was very sure from the beginning that I'm not getting into it. I just can't stand being that person and not being able to say what I have to say. And like, probably I'll be fired in a month if I did join. I just don't have the patience. Um, so yeah, so that I didn't do. But PhD, I think I just wanted to finish my education in nursing, those 4 years, and wanted to get married. Simple. हो गया इतना, like there was no that, ambition ki I have to do this, I have to do that. That was never there. There was always a very inherent like nature, that if something is happening that is not right, then there is some discrimination, there's some inequality, there's some inequity. So that kind of always got me very charged up. And then, so there is no stopping me. But it's not like, oh, I have to do a PhD one day, and like, no, nothing like that. I just had seen a lot of bad behavior, particularly in labor rooms in our country, and I had seen that we, were not advocating like we should. And whatever I wanted to do as a student, it got me nowhere, and it in fact got me reprimanded. So that kind of fired me up. That, like, why, I'm on the right here. And even if I climbed up the ladder where, my seniorest people in the profession are, if they can't help a simple situation in a ward like this, then what good is it? So it was just an idea that, who do people listen to, who do policymakers listen to, how do you change something like this? And you change something like this through research. Research was something that I had immediately liked in my graduation. And I just thought that, everything is being run through those peer reviewed journals, and people who scientifically publish things. And even to be somewhere and to advocate, you need to be somebody who has that level of education and something. So I had found my passion within my education. So since then, I've just been chasing that. And that's why I it wasn't that I have to do a PhD in abroad. That was never the case. I have never sat through and googled names of universities, and where is it the highest ranking university that I should go to. It never was that. I had never once applied to any university except Southampton. And that too was not, it had nothing to do with that university. I was working in Bihar. I had understood that after doing this, while I was working with Answers, Academy for Nursing Studies and Women Empowerment Research Studies, I had realized that I'd found out about this course called MPH, Masters in Public Health. And I just felt like that felt really good. It felt aligned to what I, want to study. And I honestly believe that that was the first level of education that I chose with, like, all my passion, that this is what I want to study. And that is where I started excelling, because I was so interested in doing that. I was interested in sitting through lectures. I was reading papers and I was doing homework like I've never done in life. And this is in, like, when I was 23, 24, 25. So yeah, so I did do well, starting from there in my education. But then I did that only because I knew that is something I want to study that will help me with, this whole nursing governance. I was reading a lot of policies. I was exposed to regulation, and what workforce management is like, what policies there are. And they were all, like, mind-bogglingly bad. And people are holding these positions, and all the decision making positions, actually they're just there for the sake of position, and they're not really making any real change. So those kind of things, it was quite an eye opener for me. But having said that, throughout, then I was doing research, I was doing implementation, I was managing large scale studies with different organizations. Also, never thinking that this is a pathway. It was always some position was there, and from one job, somebody would have heard about me, and then they will get me. So it was always good word. It wasn't even that I was actively applying for jobs. I just probably will like a project and I'll say, hey, do you need somebody on it? And people will respond. And sometimes somebody will see and they'll reach out to me saying, hey, there's a nurse researcher and she's doing this. But having said that, it has been a lot of discrimination throughout that journey as well, even with the biggest of organizations I have worked on. And you will see this. People usually hire nurses as researchers to do, there's a bad word. I don't want to use this. This is going to go on YouTube. But basically, all the basic, dirty work
Data
to get.
collection.
Yeah, data collection is one of them. You will not involve nurses in conceptualization. You'll do research on nursing, but you'll keep nurses for data collection and data entry and all of that. And then you will take them off of entire rest of the process. If you're lucky enough, you will be acknowledged in whatever section, but otherwise there's no co-authorship or there's no need to advance your career or to see help you with your growth. And we didn't know, I mean, except Dr. Prakash Sharma, I don't think I knew anybody who was actually excelling in research. So when I was working in Bihar, this was with an organization called Policy Management. Ooh, Man Singh Jat is the culprit. Sorry, Man Singh. So basically, when I was doing the data collection, I was kind of getting exposed to a lot of people, even outside India, but not necessarily attractive enough in terms of profile for me to reach out to them and be like, hey, should I study with you and that kind of a thing. Also, I never kind of had this mentality that, am I good enough for them to take me as a student? I mean, somewhere it's there, but I think I was also like very naturally inclined to find a supervisor who deserves to be my PhD guide. Like it has to be. Like it can't just be that उन्होंने मुझे ले लिया, like एहसान किया. Like, no, this is an education. It's the probably the final thing I will do if I don't do a second PhD. But they have to deserve my time and all of that as well, because I had at least identified this, that the level of passion I showed for what I wanted to do, I don't see that very often. That's the only thing that I know is different. But I met Zoe Matthews and Sabu Padmadas. They had come for a research kind of sharing a conceptualization process with a Norway-India partnership project. And I had by chance met them, and they found I had known about what they do, and they were working on. They had done a lot of midwifery, like guideline related work in global with ICM and stuff, and they had done a lot of quality of care related work. But nobody was focusing on respectful care or obstetric violence. It was still very much under quality of care. It was an angle that I was trying to explore. And then we met, and they agreed. They were in India for like a week and a weekend, and I got my office open and I met them for like half an hour. That's all they could help. And then when we met for half an hour, we ended up talking for like 3.5 hours in my office. And the person who had the chabi had opened it and left. But we kept talking for 3.5 hours, and I still tell everybody that was the chemistry I felt with those two people. I have not felt with anybody. I just knew I have to study with them. They were so like it was love at first sight. I can totally tell that the way our passion kind of matched. I have not felt that with anyone else, and it just felt like I had found those people, and they were as excited and appreciative, and they didn't treat me as a student. They also kind of showed that balance and that equality, that they will have something to gain from me as their student as well. Like the university will benefit from me. And who was I? I was just somebody who's doing nursing research in different parts of India. I had no recognition, no fame. But it was that genuine, I don't know. I mean, so that's how I got into it. So I guess the complicated answer is just find out first what you're passionate and then see where does it match. And I also always tell, well, It's not always possible, but if you can meet your supervisors before, then that's best, because I have seen some really, really, unfortunate cases where people start their education and it doesn't go very well. And the supervisors are not very keen on, spending a lot of time with you to support you and give you amount of time and support that you actually need. And often students feel very like hesitant and powerless to ask questions. And to me, it was always clear that I will. I was not funded in immediately. I had thankfully found a couple of jobs in the UK, so I could fund my own education. So I was paying my own tuition fee. So in that way, if I am paying a tuition fee, which probably is paying a percentage of their salary, like, what do I have to be scared of? I have to hold them accountable. I'm paying them. And I maintained that attitude throughout. And it wasn't hard. Like, you have taken me on, and I have this dream. This is very precious to me, and I have decided to do this with you. You have to be serious about this. There was always that other side.
I just want to ask you that how did you start means getting yourself enrolled in PhD? You said you met those two people and you matched up your vibe with them and then you get enrolled in PhD. But how did you applied for that? You did PhD from Southampton, but how
I
did
did.
you apply? Is there any way that people can apply from distance learning in that university or any of the abroad university which are good?
Yeah. There are, in fact, many universities now which are providing distance education. There are opportunities with ICM. There are opportunities with ICM, where I know this friend who's a midwife in Uganda, and she just started her PhD with a UK university. I don't remember if it is City College or I don't remember what her university is. I think it's a good idea to kind of filter out where you don't want to do a PhD. Like, I knew I didn't want to do it in America. I didn't want to do GRE. I just, like, some of these things absolutely do not make sense. If my PhD doesn't need any math skill or quantitative skills, why are you making me go through my entire childhood trauma and make me learn math all over again and appear through those exams? And if that's your criteria, I don't want to do that. Just remember, you are giving them money. They are earning from you, okay? And the other thing was, I didn't want to do a PhD that takes me 7 years long. I didn't want my experience. I had 10 years experience before I went in, research experience. I didn't want it to be, you know, denied and be treated as a fresher. So that also I maintained. So that's why it's with the UK system. I had a lot of choice. I knew I could choose. There was no fixed curriculum like America does sometimes. In most of the universities, you have a 2 year or 3 years, course curriculum that you absolutely have to go through. Many of those don't align with your, the topic that you're trying to study. And also, how do they decide? PhD is so intimate and so, you know, um, personalized to you, your research, your goals, that a university cannot decide just on themselves that every PhD student must come and must do all these courses. There are some basic ones need to do that, quantitative skills, qualitative skills, yes, but that doesn't mean that you absolutely need to go through every other thing, right? So with UK, I had the option to pick my courses, and sometimes they were not in my university. I have gone to other universities and done some of those courses as well. But I think that was important. The fact that I could finish my PhD in 3 to 4 years, that was very, very important to me. I didn't want to keep going at it, and I knew that I will be able to accomplish what I need to. I had a very clear vision about what I needed to do about that. So, so yeah, so I think that those were the main reasons that I had found out some of the countries based on their ridiculous entry restrictions, and also how long does it take for you to finish your PhD and go out back in the world. With my supervisors, after I had that conversation, we had worked on the proposal together. like I had drafted. In fact, I had a really genuinely nice boss where I was working around that time as well. So it was really him, my PhD supervisors, my prospective PhD supervisors, and me. Like the four of us kind of worked together on that proposal, and then we started applying for the funding, the grants that were there. And I did not get. It took me 2 years. I did not get any full funding. I never cracked the full funding, and I had received my admission. These are two different things. You might get admission, but you might not get funding. Those are two different things. And with every university, that's different as well. Sometimes your acceptance comes with money. Sometimes these are two different things. So while I got accepted at the university, I didn't get funding. So I had deferred it. But then within a couple of months of deferring it, I got a vice chancellor's scholarship, which was covering part of my tuition fee. And with my jobs in the UK, I could manage to pay like rest of the fee and survive there. So I just took that chance and I went. And then I like found funding on the way during, like I made my connections there. I used to pitch my study everywhere shamelessly, like nowhere. I hadn't left any table and any networking opportunity, and I would just like talk about it and like ask for money. I guess not all of them worked out. Some of them were embarrassingly rejected, but some of them worked. Sometimes there will be like £1,000, and sometimes there will be, I even got like couple of times I got like £10,000 funding, which I could then put in my retrospectively in my tuition fee, because these are very expensive. But
So
the
like
point
India,
is,
sorry,
sorry,
I'm proving in between. So like India, they also conduct entrance exam for such courses. Like
I have
you
no
said,
idea.
you opt for scholarship, so you must have applied some exam or something.
Is somebody trying to say something? No. Okay. Okay. It's just something is going on with Mansing's mic.
Yeah,
Um,
Santosh, can you mute him?
no, he is muted now. He is muted.
Okay.
Um, see, I don't know, and it always all this research that even we do in India. Um, one thing to note is that you are not restricted to just the opportunities ICN gives out, right? I know many researchers, I know many people who have not taken the IDNC route. It does advertise for some positions, and I think it often is about where is the funding coming from, and based on that funding, it then announces that this college has these many positions. It also depends on whether you have a guide in that university, right? But I think it is competitive. I think you have. I'm not sure what the process is because, like I said, I've never been through that route. But having said that, I think it's important to kind of keep your options open. I mean, don't be very fixated with just that, and it's good to be a little experimental. It
Okay,
just doesn't
and
harm.
suppose if somebody is doing PhD from India and he wants funding, so how one should apply for that? Do internationally they got funding also for
For
such
India.
course? Yeah. Suppose somebody is conducting some study here and they want some fund. So how do they apply for that?
So it really depends on what all resources you have. You have to do like a thorough research on that based on which university you want to go to, and these are very specific. There is no generic um answer to funding. Where do you have, and how to get it? Like I there are Commonwealth applications, but then that depends on which countries are being funded there and which universities are on their list. There is something called Newton Bhabha funding, for example, and these are all, I think, UK funding, and that's the ones I had looked up. That's why I know about some of these. But then when you go out, there are very university specific funding opportunities. So that's why it's very difficult to do that. But I get the answer is to create an Excel sheet. Once you decide what you want to do, I think a few of the basics are just find out what is your area that you're really, passionate about, and don't choose a position or research just because money is there and that position is available. PhD is not something where you just go with that. You really need to be able to, connect with it and really want to do it. So once you have that nailed down, that what is it that you absolutely want to do, then start looking for who are the people in the world who are, because it's so specific. There aren't a lot of people who will be able to guide you. And they could be anywhere in the world. Once they are anywhere in the world, then find out what all places are those. Take things out where, okay, this person is in America, 8 to 9 years. I don't have, that much patience or time to give to that. Filter them out. Then get in touch with these people and have a very, very strong pitch ready. People do not have time. Supervisors get hundreds of these. So you just make sure you have a very good, like an abstract, a pitch that you're trying to study. Why are you interested to study that? And that kind of a thing. And very often people will get in touch with you. And I think that's where it all begins. That do you want to study with them? And then if you do, then what are the options? Your PhD supervisor itself will tell you, okay, these are the funding sources. You also have to do some research on your own, that if you're going to do a PhD at JNU, what are the different funding sources that people have received? Facebook and other social media channels work a lot because all universities these days have those groups, right? So get into one of those groups and ask people, what have you applied for? And then start looking into each of those funding. Deadline kab hai, how much money are they giving, are they covering tuition fee? Not every funding will cover everything. Is it just something that is giving you a stipend? Is it just something that will cover your travel? And don't look for something that has to cover everything. You're getting small pots of money, take it. So it's really a lot of research even before you get an opportunity. And if you don't have that drive, then I guess it becomes difficult. And this could all happen in India. I know phenomenal people who have done their PhDs in India and have found like really good supervisors as well. So there's nothing saying that you have to go outside the country to be what you call successful. I still have my problem with that word.
Okay, now, Ms. Azafar, I know you are doing postdoctorate. So,
I
how
am.
did you apply for that? How did you get an idea that I should go for postdoctorate? And how did you get to know that, yes, this is the area where I can do?
I didn't. I had no postdoctoral ambitions. You will see a pattern. I have never had this kind of thing. Ki, this is what I have to do. It was never like that. I have found
Okay,
projects. I have.
before starting with that, I would like to know that from where you started initially, from like from where you have done your schooling, and then from BSc, then MSc, then a PhD, and then postdoctorate. Then we can understand the pattern that how you have gone through.
Oh, okay. Um, my father was in Air Force. I was born in Rajasthan, and when I was 3 months old, we were transferred from Jodhpur, where I was born, to Srinagar. I lived there for 3 years. Then we moved to Karnataka, Bidar. There is a district in northern Karnataka. Bidar is where I started my education. Lower KG, upper KG in an Air Force school. Then from first onwards, I started in Kendriya Vidyalaya, Bidar. It was a beautiful school. It was one of those model schools, everybody talks about, where everybody's skirts are nicely ironed and like everybody's shirt every day is ujala cleaned and all kind of things. Really nice sports supplies and every kind of skills, you name it, and it's just like perfect. All the best kind of teachers go to these model schools. Then I my father got transferred to Delhi, and I from fourth standard to seventh standard I was at KV Janakpuri. Oh my god, that was such a bad school. Such a bad school. Like people started bullying me from day one, and it was just like that that primary section looked like a cowshed, and I felt like where was I studying, and like what is this? How is a KV like this? But it was like that. It was barbad. Like everybody was spoiled. And from there I went to Bagdogra, in Darjeeling district. My father got posted again. From there, 8th standard to 12th standard, even though my father got posted back to Rajasthan again, but it was 10th and 12th, so I convinced my mother to stay on and let me finish my schooling there. And it was another of those model schools. So really, really amazing. Up to 10th standard, I wasn't doing much very seriously. My pre-boards, I barely managed to pass. And my parents will beg me to like at least like pass with like 60% and stuff. But then first love happened when I was in 9th and 10th standard, and before board examinations, first heartbreak also happened, and that I think fueled my I think hunger for education. And I was like, I'm gonna beat this guy in my marks. I didn't. But having said that, I did quite well, and I like did like I think 76% or something. I think I can disclose that here. From barely passing with 35%, that was a big leap. Anyway, so that happened. Before that, I always wanted to study, I think, commerce. But then my principal was very, very, he really liked me. I was never good at studies, but I was very, very good extracurricularly. Like all kinds of things. I'm like those typical Bengalis who like you touch something and you excel. गाना गाना आता है dance करना आता है like just name it, I do it all. Okay, so I was that student in the school. So anyway, so that happened. So he was like, we didn't have like our school was so model, we didn't have arts and commerce, we only had science.
Oh.
And he didn't want to lose me, so he convinced my father. I stayed on, did science. And then I went back to Calcutta because we wanted to be somewhere where I can complete my college education and it's not impacted by my father's job. And one morning, my maternal uncle, my youngest maternal uncle, was shaving and reading a newspaper, and in that employment paper there was the Bengali advertisement of nursing, enrollment, and there were 15 seats. And he got excited. He's like, yes, let's send her there. He's like, there are 15 seats. So I filed the application and all of that happened. I appeared for counseling. I gave the exam, and I struck gold at 13th seat. It was quite amazing because there were like millions of girls were, trying to get into these, and I didn't know how big a deal it was. And it was not just West Bengal. We had 5 seats for other northeastern states as well. So that's why it was like very, very competitive. So anyway, so that happened. So then 4 years in Calcutta, Government College of Nursing. Then I worked for a couple of years. So from there, I had no further education aspirations. It was always like, okay, work for a couple of years, then getting bored, let's study a little bit. And then did masters, then worked for another like 6-7 years, then got bored, like, let's study a little bit. So then started my PhD. You have heard about the PhD. When I was doing my PhD, that was the first time when I was actually, understanding the world that there was, and in different countries what was happening. And I was getting noticed quite a bit. I was getting invited to things quite a bit. I was also kind of putting in money from my pocket to go to some of these things, like World Health Assembly. When I went there for the first time, I paid for the tickets myself. I had found somewhere to stay in somebody's house, but I always had to find those ways. I did an internship at WHO headquarters, and I couldn't afford it because those are unpaid. But I had ran an online campaign for 10 months when I accumulated enough money. Like people, poured in money. It was crowdfunding. And wherever I was doing some of my speaking engagements, I will put a link to that. Can you go fund me? There is this thing, and people will put in whatever money, they can. And in other countries, that what like sometimes they'll even put like 5,000 or 10,000, and that's a lot for us, right? Like, who gives money away like that? But
Yeah.
people will see, that this is something that I'm doing, and so that way it took months to kind of accumulate that money and then go do that internship. With my postdoc, the same thing happened. I didn't know where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do next. I just wanted to find something really meaningful, something that takes my PhD to a next step, the research that I was doing. And I had my mind set on places where midwifery is doing very strongly. And I really wanted a midwife supervisor. And where I am right now, in terms of obstetric violence and midwifery, it's one of the only places in the world that specifically does just that research and other things. But it just like anywhere you go, you see that birthplace lab is doing all the RMC related work. The guidelines are coming from here, the tools are coming from here, the frameworks, the scales are coming from here. But I didn't see a lot of good qualitative work, and I was doing very well qualitatively. So it was my professor, my supervisor here, and also postdoc is not education. Postdoc is kind of employment. It's just like you're still kind of get away with things because you're still kind of learning, but it's still the entire responsibility and everything. So my current supervisor, she had been seeing me at conferences over the years, where how sessions are divided based on themes. So under respectful maternity care, we will always present back to back, and I will present from India, she'll present from Canada. But it was always like we were meeting, and we both be wearing saris, and we will present, and she will present something beautiful quantitative work, and I'll present some really beautiful qualitative work. And a few years, 2 years before I finished my PhD, we were returning, and this conference happens in northern England, and we were returning. She had to fly back from London, and I had to go back to Southampton. Is when she very romantically kind of bought me a limited edition perfume, and in a very like Shah Rukh Khan style, she took me out for dinner, and no, lunch. It was lunch. We were waiting for people at lunch, and then she gave me that, and she said, "Kaveri, will you come do a postdoc with me when you are finished your PhD?" And I already had this place on my mind as one of these things that would be nice to do that, but not so much ki 2 years ahead I have started applying for funding or anything. So I thought that was, and I'm a sucker for romantic gestures. So doesn't matter what was presented, but I was like, I felt so loved by that. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to fund my work there? Is there money for her to fund me? Nothing. We'll find a way out. But it was just that, and then I didn't apply anywhere else. It was again that, okay, fine. This is what it feels like the best thing to do. Oh, I did apply for a Wellcome Trust grant for postdoc, I think. But before this, before she had kind of gotten in touch with me, and then she didn't have, like, there was no funding with the lab. But what has happened always is that I have found the people first. I have never chosen organizations or universities. I have always found, I have always anchored myself in people who are doing good work, and if who I'm going to work with, who I'm going to, be with is passionate about the work that they are doing or not. And then together we kind of drafted. I had a proposal idea on my mind, but their entire team helped me a lot. Like, I've never received this kind of support in a proposal that I got when I was coming here to Birthplace Lab. And then we applied for funding for my postdoc, and then I got it for 3 years. So that's what I'm doing right now. But throughout, even in my PhD, I continued doing consultancies, because if there is, I just want to break this notion for people that if you have left the country, that means you're really, kind of, there's a lot of money in doing one of these things. There isn't. The struggle is real, and your expenses are sky high, and you can often not, um, you have to think twice. Do you want to have lunch? And it's better you pack lunch. It's better you pack that tiny to go cup to take coffee from somewhere. That still happens. Money wise, most places are not doing very well. I don't know, when you probably get funding for big projects, maybe things changes, but that hustle is real, and it doesn't feel like you're very successful or you have made it. At least financially you don't. So you always have to be very sensible about that that shouldn't be your main, like, motivation, that if you're out, or you'll be I don't know, gold and all of that. It's not like that. It just find the place. So that's why I kept doing consultancies, because I didn't want to have one thing as my sustenance, and postdocs don't pay you much. So consultancies kind of keep you going. So yeah, have I completed my journey? I started with my birth, huh?
Yeah, you completed very nicely. And how much time means we need to complete this postdoctorate? Is there any time frame to finish it?
No,
No.
postdoc is not an education. Like PhD, if you left your PhD, you won't have a PhD. You wouldn't have doctor in front of Alkarai. Postdoc is just like another job. It's
Yeah.
just like another research funding. And
Okay.
postdocs depends on which university you are going to. Some places have a cap that you cannot be a postdoc for more than 7 years. It could
Okay.
be that you have applied for a funding for 1 year or 2 years. In my case, it has happened for 3 years. And no, you have no mandate that you have to absolutely finish your postdoc. Postdoc is a time when you get a lot of things that you couldn't maybe finish during your PhD, because
Okay.
often people don't publish as much from their PhD as you can, because that is completely your research. You are the principal investigator. It's your brainchild. You should be able to publish as much as you can. And I think that is something I have done very well. I do not know anybody who has published as much from their PhD as I have done. But
That's it.
having said that, this gives you time to keep thinking and keep doing that. Make sure you have done justice to your doctoral work, get it all out. You also look at other positions which are more full time, and like lecturerships. Find out who you are. What do you want to? Because PhD, once you do, when you finish your PhD, it leaves you empty and lonely. And that's how I felt. And I like immediately what hit me? What is this Pali pun? Like, why is my heart sinking and all this passion suddenly it disappears? But that's your time when you finally have the bandwidth to figure out, okay, PhD is done. What am I doing next? Like, do I want to be an academic? Do I want to, you know, keep doing research? Do I want to be an activist? Do I want to be a policymaker? What is it that I want to be? And keep applying for all these things that you can. So yeah, so this is that time. Also learn how to apply for funding, those kind of things. So this is like a buffer, right? Because during your PhD you do not have the bandwidth, or I mean any that kind of a thing to kind of think that big and forward. But yeah, some people keep doing that because it's kind of a requirement as well for your postdoc. If you want to be a teaching academic, then you can um, kind of do some courses, teach some courses, create some courses. So it's like the next step. It's basically for your supervisor and for the universities. It's a lot of good work at badly paid positions. It's really for their benefit more, I would say. But yeah, that's what PhD is. I have a 3 year thing, but if I find a good opportunity, I don't have to stick to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
next, that's great, really great. I would like to know that do you think why do nurses need to read, write, and participate in planning and development?
Why? We don't have an option, because the thing that you were saying in the beginning, that we don't choose our profession, and we don't come to our profession. We kind of land in it. Like, we are not choosing it enough, and I completely agree with you. This is something I've been saying at all my advocacy engagements, that and why should people like do would you I often ask, do you want your children to take up nursing or midwifery? Have we made this profession as appealing enough, where people are just like, they want to do it? Like, you are a child and you're like, oh my god, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, and
We have not
means many of means nurses, they are like they land up here by chance, not by choice, and means after getting a job they become very satisfied or content with their daily routine. They don't, some of them don't opt for higher studies, but few of them opt for higher studies, and after, even after completing masters, they become trapped in the system. And means I think they want to do further studies and they want to go for research, and I think research is one of that area where they can explore and extend their horizon of knowledge. So can you suggest us that in which areas should nurses do research and explore so that it can be benefited the profession in future?
There is no specific area where nurses should do research, because there is no specific area where nurses shouldn't do research. Would you ask this question to a doctor saying, what is the specific area where a doctor should do research? The world is an oyster for them, right?
Yeah.
So why isn't the world an oyster for nurses as well? Like we are exposed to the same clinical environment as them. We are exposed to the same regulatory and policy related challenges. If their practice and education is influenced by scientific research, so is ours. And where is this research coming from? Mainly doctors and mainly from global north. So if even in India, if it is so sorted that a doctor can practice, can do research as well, can be an academic, have a thriving career, get it all, do it all, why regulatory provision is not there for us to be able to do that as well? So that's the point, right? So there are these policy related things within the workforce, within regulation, within administration that creates these barriers. So if we do not take up research, if something doesn't bother you enough that you think that I need to do research to change this, then what's the point of doing research? And this
Yeah, that it
research
should be
is not
discovered.
exactly it's the same thing. If enough people will not take it up, people will follow the lead of other people. There are plenty of people who, when I was doing my master's in public health, thought that was so silly. And since then, there's so many people I know who have joined MPH after doing nursing, and they haven't necessarily left nursing. I haven't left nursing because nursing research is as important a career pathway as clinical nursing is, as teaching in nursing is, as community nursing is. But if we don't establish it, and if enough people don't get to see people who are doing it and sustaining a livelihood, why will they take a break, right? So I think it is really just that we don't have a choice. There are things which are not up to what how we want things to be in our profession, but it's on us to be able to change that. It's for us to feel absolutely disturbed and frustrated about some of these things, and or motivated and inspired and passionate about some of these things, and get into research. And to be curious is very important, and not everyone has to do research. Some people are really made for clinical work and they love it, and that has to happen too. We do want very good people who are excelling in clinical nursing. We want people who are marvelous educators. We want people who are amazing at people skills, are excelling in the community. But we
Yeah, I
just
can
have to
see in the
do that.
chat box that we have Dr. Brigadier Mala. She is agreeing with that. That yes, she agree that we haven't been able to make nursing that appealing in India at least. So despite having different level of education in nursing, public recognition with positive stroke is still needs to be lifted, and I think which is very true. So, with this, I would like to conclude. We have talked a lot about you and how and what we can do as a nurse in the area of research. So, I would like to thank you for giving your and sparing your precious time with us, and would like to thank Team IAPH for giving
Uh,
me this opportunity.
Alka,
Yeah.
please let her give a concluding statement before we have. Sorry to interrupt. We have another 5 minutes to go on live stream. Then it will disconnect. So you can give a concluding statement and then you can conclude. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
Please
it's okay.
conclude.
It's okay. If you want to tip our young nurses, young budding nurses in the area of research, that what they can do for the betterment of the profession.
I don't know. Find an area. Find something that bothers you. I think that's the basic thing. And there's so much that should bother you, to be honest. And I don't think there's a dearth of ideas or areas of work. So just like find your passion, find something that you will feel very close to and passionate about, and treat it like your own, and that will not let you sleep at night, and that will like give you nightmares and dreams and make you wake up with ideas and make you write things down. And I think once you have that, rest of it is sorted. And I know people are doing that. There are so many friends who actually I see who are passionate, and who are trying to make some real good changes. And it's not just my generation, it's not just the younger generation than me. There are such tremendous and beautiful examples in our senior communities as well, of people who had much less privilege than even we did. So it's, I mean, really just like find your passion is all I would want to say. And don't be deterred with people and the negativity you get and the way you get judged. It's difficult, it's tough to do than here, but somewhere just like try to find your support and keep going, and you, I think, find where you have to go. I haven't found it yet, I'm still going. You'll see where I end up. But yeah, I think that's what I have to say. So thank you so much for the opportunity. This has been really exciting.
Okay, thank you so much. And we will be on YouTube live chat. So if anybody is having any queries, you can send your queries on in the comment section. We will try to reply all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alka.
Thank you. Thank you.